everybody. Welcome to the Football 360 show, the fastest hour of talk, football talk, that is, on the planet. There's our social media. You can see, hit us up, JP Rock MO on X, JP Rock Scout U on Instagram, Elite Football on X, Elite Football Academy on the gram. For Mr. Matt Bierman, I am JP Rock. Great to be with you today. Hope everybody's staying warm and enjoying their Thursday. Surprise Thursday. We couldn't make it in on Tuesday, Matt, because of the bad weather.
Little inclement weather on Tuesday.
Inclement weather, especially more some places than others.
Yeah, I mean, you'd hope that the road crews would be well seasoned by now with the winter we've had to get everything cleaned up. But
exactly, and on what they call assignment.
Yes, we got you.
Yeah. Hopefully,
at an undisclosed location. I'm
at an undisclosed location in my hidden lair. as some people know, I am Batman.
Yes, yes, you are.
So the Batman of football. So we really kind of we couldn't do it on Tuesday, so we thought about doing it today. But as we roll, producer Joe hit us up this morning. He's like, "Hey guys, are we doing a thing?" And we're like, "Oh yeah, that."
Yeah. It's been a busy week, man. So, I mean, with Monday, we had the youth middle school combine, which was a really big success. We had
huge success.
Little over 100 kids for our first time. We've done the high school combines for years and years, but decided to have the younger guys, and it really worked well. And I think a lot of kids gained valuable experience, kind of seeing how that process works, kind of opens their eyes. And we've had conversations with parents about how they did and, what they can do to improve. And then also just kind of like getting used to the process. And it's kind of eye opening once you get into it and you're like, oh man, they're going to compare me to other kids. I'm not just racing the kids on my team. And,
right.
I think it's one of those things that at the end of the day, the more times you can get into those situations, the easier. Looks like we lost JP on his video feed, but I think we can hear him on the audio feed.
Yeah, and I don't know what happened on that, and I think I might have bumped something. Joe.
Uh-oh.
You want to help me out there? Can you hear me, Matt?
Yeah, I got you. I can hear you loud.
Okay, well, nothing else. It's just put a picture of me up there, and
put a picture of JP,
and we'll keep talking. But no, I mean, it was an absolutely great. It was absolutely great experience.
Oh, you're kind of cutting in and out, JP. But you're right. It was a really good experience for the kids. I think we're losing you, JP. You're in and out. So until we get him back here, essentially 100, I think it was a little over 100 kids that we had come in that were 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. And those guys really put on a show. There were some guys that made some really good, what I would consider even high school level results. A lot of kids, we had a few kids break the 5 second flat on the laser finish 40, which is quite a feat. I mean, we'll have high school kids that don't do that. I think we had a number of, about 4 or 5 kids actually were under 5 flat. So that was pretty cool. Pretty neat to see kids run at that speed. And then also some really good broad jumps. We had multiple kids over 8 foot, one kid at 9 foot, which is really good. Really tough to see at that age. We got JP back.
Right.
So I was just kind of talking through some of the results that we saw. I mean, just anytime you have anybody break a 5 second on the laser, 40 is really good. Anytime you see anybody get over 8 foot in middle school, 8.5 to 9 foot on the broad jump, anything 25 plus on the vertical leap is really good. And then anything in that 4.4 range and the pro agility starts to get into high school level times, which is cool to see a lot of the young guys. So I think the future is really bright for a lot of kids in the St. Louis area.
super bright. And I got to tell you what, it was an eye-opening experience. I was talking to myself there while I was gone, but I was saying how I think it was a really eye-opening experience for guys because a lot of these young guys were on their team, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and they really got to see some really good competition, some other really talented athletes. And so some guys came in there, expecting to just sell, but there were some dogs who were there who really let that work on what level they need to try to aspire to reach.
Yes.
And I mean, it was just super impressive. Great young quarterbacks, really good young receivers, some nice young linemen, some really nice running backs. And I'm talking about like 5th grade up. You had some 5th, 6th graders there who were just like, wow, if they keep on that trajectory, what are they going to be like?
What's interesting is people kind of, you wait to get into that environment and you don't really know what to expect. To say a kid goes to like his first combine when he's a sophomore in high school and they're woefully unprepared, right? So they don't know what that system is. And we ran it just like we run a high school combine. Like we didn't, really baby them a lot. One of the things you can see, one of the key takeaways is on the 40, a lot of kids need to get a better, idea of like their start. So you kind of help them with that, but you can't fix that in 30 seconds before their start. But,
right.
But some of those kids, even with not having the best technique, still showed really well. And then you're right, when you got in the skill component and the one-on-ones, it was really cool to see. A lot of really nice plays being made, good connections on just letting guys rip the ball and guys getting to cover and guys get to run routes. I thought it was really good. And then some really good action with some of the young offensive and defensive linemen going head to head. So it's just fun to see. And there's kids from around the region. We had some kids from, Southern Illinois, Central Illinois, into, really kind of all over.
Central Missouri.
Yeah, right. So it's cool to see. And a good, Columbia to Springfield, Decatur, Illinois, and then, kind of that whole swath in between, and then obviously the St. Louis metro area.
Right.
So, JP, what was your key takeaway from that? It's kind of a primer for us to get out and get testing and doing everything that we love doing. What was your key? Like, what was your thought
key
process,
takeaway was
as an evaluator?
Right. My biggest takeaway was I'm shocked at the level
Oh, you're cutting out, JP.
Of not only young talent,
hey JP, you were cutting. There's a lot of lag with you.
A lot of them possess.
Yeah, the skill set that these guys possess at the younger ages is pretty crazy. And I think, it's like you look at like how you start to like look at the kids in different categories because we put their scores out and you let them see kind of where they were, right, and what they did, and kind of how their scores stack rank, and I told the kids, you want to look at like an overall event, how well you do for the overall event. You also want to look at kind of like how you did versus other kids your age, and then also at your position group, right? So it's one thing to like go, oh, I didn't have the fastest 40 or I didn't have the longest broad jump. Take a zoom back and say, okay, hey, position group wise, where was I? Then take a look, take a jump back and say, okay, grade wise, where was I? Okay. And then you kind of look size wise as well. So height, weight, kind of proportionate, and see where you were in that. Right. And so it's kind of a cool thing to see, is because a lot of times kids will get caught thinking like way too much, like, hey, oh, I didn't do that good. But if they take a one jump back, one level back, they go, oh, that was the fastest running back there at my age, or I was or I was like the third best running back at my age. And so I think that's the kind of stuff that's pretty cool, is that to have guys understand, kind of how they stack up. And again, it's never a finished product. I think that's pretty cool. To understand, that's what we talk to the kids about. So yeah, it looks like we have one of the parents of one of the kids has written in and said that they had a good experience. It looks like his son did a really good job. And it did awesome. And it was a top 10 in every category. So those are things that you want to like pour into, right? Because if you start to see that you're towards the top of any category, you don't rest on it. You start to pour gas on the fire and start to really focus on those things as an athlete and kind of as a parent, to support those things, right? And say, hey, the things we're doing are working, or hey, maybe we haven't worked a ton on it, but you got some natural talent. We got to really pour in on this. And so that's something to be thinking about as a parent. And that's the same thing as someone that's a high school combine as well. So
yeah, absolutely. And hopefully you got me.
Yeah, you're way better.
Yeah, this is way better. Hopefully, God love Apple, right?
Yes.
So hopefully the guys who came in and didn't do as well as they thought they were going to do initially, hopefully that motivates them as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it has to.
Yeah. Because I know some guys were and you talked about them in social media and what they put on social media. Some guys were talking pretty big with it. They were looking forward. They were going to come in. They were going to do this. They were going to do that. And they did well, but there were better guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so hopefully they, instead of, and I didn't really see anybody having their head down or feeling bad. I could tell some were surprised at the level of competition that there was and how good some of these guys were. And hopefully that just motivates them to keep working. But overall, man, what a great job. What a great job by you guys at Elite and your staff putting it together. Ran super smooth. Everybody got a ton of reps.
Yes.
I mean,
to the point where I said, hey, you guys might be a little spoiled because you go to a high school combine or the Lindenwood camp.
Right.
And honestly, I think we spent an hour, probably, or 45 minutes of running one-on-ones. And so that's a long time. I mean, that's a lot of reps, especially because we had it going on two ends. Plus we had another field going.
Right.
So yeah, I think as far as that goes, I mean, to me, you gain that valuable knowledge of hey, this is what I need to do. This is what I can do. These are things I need to improve on. And then the process is pretty simple. Like at the end of the day, you're going to be at those style events from now to the time you'll finish your recruiting process. And so, the Lindenwood camp, I think this is a great segue into the Lindenwood camp because a lot of those eighth graders, I would suggest, and I did suggest, they go to our combine on March 8th.
Right.
But then also that they go to the Lindenwood combine or mega camp, which is going to be June 6th and 7th, which is what we just ran on steroids. So I told the guys, like, there was 100 kids there. Imagine we do that 25 times, right? There's 130 to, or maybe 20 times, but there's 120 to 130 guys in each group at Lindenwood. And they rotate through and you get tons of guys that, are the best guys of their team. And you got to like figure out like psychologically, like when things aren't going your way, are you going to keep pushing through it or are you going to just, kind of fold? And I think gaining experience when you're young will definitely benefit you.
Yeah. And we talk about it all the time, and you said in your post combine speech, it's not the same as even 5 years ago. Right. Just recruiting has changed. And if you have any aspirations to play college football, you're going to have to start working younger and younger to make that happen. And we see it all the time. And we see some really good athletes, right, who are heading into their senior year and they haven't done anything. Right. They might be nice football players. They might contribute to their team. But you can't wait till you're a senior or you're going between your junior and your senior year and be like, okay, now I'm going to focus on training and what I need to do, because you can't turn it on and off like that. And so these guys, and so many of them were so good on Monday because a lot of them come in to train with you. The guys from far away, they train other places. You know, they put in the hours in football, and it shows. It absolutely shows.
It does, and so like the tough thing is too is like when you're like talking to these guys about like, hey, you need to be able to accomplish these milestones when you're training and when you're doing a combine or things that you need to be. You don't have to be the top of every category. You got to be in the mix though, right?
Yep.
And I think a lot of these guys, when you're the best kid on your team, and talking about some of the high school kids, they think, and I would think rightfully so, and I think it starts at a younger age where the parents are like, "Oh, my kid's the best guy on the team," and why would he need to do that? He was he was a team MVP. He led the team in scoring, but you need to take the Google Earth view. You need to get your zip code view out of it and start thinking globally in the sense of the Google Maps view where you back it all the way out and you see all the United States and you say, okay, there's kids just like me in every part of the country trying to do what I'm doing, right? And we've talked about the idea of, half of the recruiting class now is high school kids, the other half is transfers.
Mm-hmm.
So that just cut what was already, let's call it before, is 5.8% of kids get to play college football that play high school football. Well, when you hear that they're doing, and then of that to play at the Division I Power 5 level, it's like 3% or 2.5%, whatever it is, 2.5%, if that.
Right.
Now you take that and you pull it back, and it goes down to
at half it again.
Yeah, half it again, and now you're looking at 1%, the top 1%. Well, if you're not in the top 60 quarterbacks in the country coming out in your class, there's probably a good chance you're not going to FBS level. You're probably going more FBS, Group of 5, or FCS level.
And we're
maybe D2.
We're seeing that. We saw it last year. I mean, there were 5 really good D1 caliber quarterbacks, right?
Yep.
And guys who in years past would have gotten the offers from Northwestern, would have gotten the offers from Kansas, Kansas State, Iowa State. They had to go down to that level, the FCS level.
Yep.
We're seeing it now in the 2026 class. There's a few really, really good quarterbacks, and they're getting offers. They're getting D1 offers, but in years past, they would have gotten offers already from Mizzou, right, or Illinois, and it's just not happening that way because the transfer portal. I mean, let's be blunt. It's the transfer portal. So if you are one of those guys, like you said, you want to be one of the top 60 guys, you really have to put in the work, right? You cannot have, and you and I know, because we talk to these college coaches, any kind of perceived flaw. It doesn't even have to be a flaw in your or my opinion, but perceived flaw in your technique, in anything you do, is reason enough for them to say, we'll wait or we'll pass.
Yep. And here's the thing. If you're not an outlier in any one category, and it's usually not even a speed thing as much as, because most guys are kind of in the similar range.
Yeah.
It's more of the size thing. So if you don't fit, where they are size wise, where they want you to be, like you're not an outlier. You look at like Jackson Cantwell. If he didn't have the size he has, he's a damn good football player. But the size is what gets these guys going. And it was funny. I was watching one of these funny guys that do the parodies of college coaches.
Yeah.
And they had a kid. He it's the same person, right? He's interviewing. He says, "Hey, how many sacks did you let up this year?" And the guy's 6'1", 305.
Yeah.
He's 0 sacks, no pressures. They go to the other guy, 6'6", 300 pounds. How many sacks? He goes, "Oh, this is my second year of playing football. I gave up 12 sacks and whatever." And he goes, we're gonna have to cut it down, and we're gonna have to go with you, right? And the other guy's giving up no sacks. Is like, what? Like, why?
Right.
But they go to the guy who fits the mold, right? And so, what you and I know, sometimes that's why they miss on so many guys.
Absolutely.
when they start going after perceived strengths, and I would argue with any college coach or even a professional coach, if once you get into a certain size range, I would love to see the analytics that they have that say a 10.5-inch hand for a defensive end does this, or a 79-inch versus a 82-inch reach does this, or the height does that, because at the end of the day, there's guys you look at, there's guys that have definitely played at sizes that are not considered ideal, that
Right.
dominate the game. And you say, well, is that person just that much better, or did they miss on what the profile really is? And so there's certain things, clearly there's certain things that you have to be big enough. But I look at Dylan Gabriel this year. That guy has dominated college football since he came in. He's done extremely well. And if he is 5'9",
yeah,
on a good day, he's 5'9", right?
Absolutely.
And the dude can rip the ball. He can run. And more importantly, he's got great people skills. People love playing for him and playing with him.
Well,
So,
you and I are old enough to remember when, if you were a quarterback, had to be 6'3".
oh yeah,
Had to be 6'3" or better. Had to be 215. 6'3", 215 was the ideal. That was the mecca, right? And then it got to go 6'4", 6'5". You had some 6'6" quarterbacks. They don't really look for that anymore, right?
No.
You and I both know some 6'6", 6'5", 6'4" quarterbacks who can really rip it, right? And have all the tools, but they're not looking for that, because now the excuse is, well, how well do you run?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So if they don't perceive a 6'5", 6'6" guy as being able to run the way they want them to, they talk about their mobility issues or this or that. And it's like, if you're 6'4", 6'5", and you can stand tall in the pocket and have all the skills, techniques, the vision, and can just, throw dimes all day long, why do you need to run?
Right.
But this is the trend that they're all using.
Correct.
And it's helping the shorter quarterbacks.
It is, and then it is interesting, and they want the tackles to keep getting bigger, right?
Yep.
And so they want all that. And it's funny, is when the 6'4" guys were in vogue, 6'3" plus, I would always we would have some really damn good quarterbacks. Like, you look at a guy like Brett Gabbert, was like a guy that was 6 foot, 6'1.5", and he would get, every coach would watch him and go, oh man, he's the best quarterback we've seen in the country, but he can't offer, he's too small.
Yep.
Now it's changed, right, in that time, so the pendulum has swung, and so that's allowable. Right. And there's other guys that are now in college football in that last 6 years. They've got this, the trend has changed, and I think a lot of it's play calling, right, with the RPO, and then they like to run the quarterback a little bit more than they traditionally do, which obviously there's risk in doing that. But the interesting thing is it changed kind of overnight, because like when Blaine Gabbert was going through, he was the prototypical guy. He was 6'4", right? And I think Blaine would tell you, Brett coming out of high school was a far better quarterback than he was, right? And this is a guy that had a 12-year career, first round draft pick. So I think that so you miss on guys like that, right? And then who could be program changers, but you do it based on what? At the time, the size wasn't, and I think we've talked about this.
Yeah.
A lot of times coaches don't want to get themselves in trouble by recruiting something that's outside the norm, right? If you will. So like right now, smaller quarterbacks that move, speed is the name of the game, right? For quarterbacks, speed's the name of the game for every position, right?
Yeah.
So like if you're going to err on the side of one thing, it's that. And so, once they find that size parameter that you need to fit into, the speed parameter becomes really important. But I do think, coaches got to believe and scouts got to believe what they see with their own eyes, because a lot of times you can get tricked into thinking like, hey, this guy is the, what, and he's really not a great football player.
Yeah.
But he passes the eye test.
Right. And you see that all the time. And I got to tell you what, they doubt themselves so much. And I think it's because there's so much on the line.
Yes.
Right. And when I say so much, I mean money. Money rules it. And so, if you're not successful within a couple of years now, you're gone. When back in the day, you got 5-6 years. I remember always hearing, well, it takes about 5 to 6 years to build a program and make it yours.
And so like last year, the narrative with with Indiana was, hey, that was a 1-year turnaround, right? They made it to the college football playoffs because but you have to be willing to blow up your roster and bring in for 1 year a group of mercenaries that will do it and hope that they click. And if they do click, and there's going to be certain coaches that are better at getting that style of coaching in versus a traditional coach who's a builder versus a guy who's like, hey, we're going to turn and burn this thing. And then, next year we might not be very good, but I just signed a 5-year contract. So what do I care? They got to buy me out. So that's kind of the trick on the coach's side of the things. But I think it is a really weird situation for the high school kids because things are going to get bigger. Things are going to get faster as far as like how this thing's moving. So, you're talking about the money. I had a really interesting conversation with the guy this morning. He had a conversation with, let's just say, a Power 2 AD. So when I say Power 2, there's only 2 conferences that matter in college football, SEC and Big Ten. Yeah. Those 2 are driving the boat when it comes to a lot of it. So they just recently had a meeting and, between the 2 conferences, and it sounds like it's warp speed. There's things coming. It's very reminiscent of what we've been talking about for the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. It is like whoever, like locally for Mizzou, good for them for being in the SEC because they're in Illinois. They're going to be in a great situation.
You're saying there's going to be a super conference.
There's something coming, right?
And then everybody else.
Yeah, and I think you look at like the Big Ten and SEC are fully in control when it comes to this because they control the media rights essentially and the money, and it's only going to get bigger and better for them. The way I kind of see it, and this is not coming from him, but I see the SEC Big Ten as the core, right? Those 30-something teams, right, between the 2 of them.
Yeah.
So you take those groups and then you bolt on the ACC. You bolt on the independents and then the Big 12.
Yeah.
Whatever way you want to do that, however you let them join, I don't think they're going to be on equal footing at any point because they're not going to go in with any sort of power, right?
Yeah.
When Oklahoma and Texas left the Big 12, it pretty much annihilated any hope for them to have any leverage in the conversation.
Right.
Now, with Clemson and Florida State wanting to get out of the ACC, that pretty much, say they allow them to move, if they get their way, they'll gladly those 2 would gladly be accepted into the SEC or Big Ten.
Yeah.
Now you look at that and it's over, right? It's over. So, but I think the super conference as well within, and it sounds like it's going to be happening, next year and a half, 2 years. There's going to be some major shifts.
What do you think is going to happen with the schools that are left out? What do you think happens with the Iowa States and the Kansases?
I don't know. I mean, I think there's a really good. I think the Big Ten and Big 12 will still exist inside that ecosystem. They just won't be the major players in it, right? So like,
so you think it'll be more like regional football?
Yeah. Yeah, that I've seen models. I've seen some models where they talk about the regional stuff, and then you've also seen like almost like the Premier League, where like they have the play in. So you have your top line, organizations that stay in there, and then you have the lower level teams that play in. But some of these teams, like let's just say like the Houstons and even like a Utah, people that have come in, or Brigham Young who have come into the Big 12 late. Mm-hmm. They may be the guys getting squeezed out and not being in that conversation with the traditional powerhouses because you got basketball is probably a consideration as well. So like the Kansases of the world will be pretty solid, right? Because they got good basketball.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But it sounds like there's definitely a lot of questions that have to get answered. But I think there's a movement is going pretty quick. I'm still of the belief. And I could be crazy, but I've been saying this. I know I think we're on the same page. I think the college football teams at the major level will become subsidiaries of the universities, much like a health system would be, or whatever, an agriculture, development project or whatever they do. That's where they're making money outside the university realm, but they have rights to it.
Right.
I have a feeling that that's where these guys are going, and they're going to be their own
Right.
entities within that. And I think some of the Title IX stuff that was up in the air that got cleared up a week or two ago. Where now they basically are saying that the Title IX money is not the same as a scholarship, and does not apply equally across all sports. I think you're going to see as the lawsuit was kind of decided, the lion's share of the money is going to football. The rest will go to men's and women's basketball, and then a little bit will go to the other remaining sports. And kind of based on what revenues generated. And I think that'll be the first step to kind of help steady the ship. But then once they break away, it's going to be, and if I'm watching this right, who has the most to lose in this situation, in my opinion, would be the NFL.
Oh,
right?
without question.
Because now you have a professional sports league, like another sports league, a rival league that has very good fan support,
and very good fan support, and possibly a better product, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, and so now you're thinking, a 5-year lifespan with athletes, right? They have to control the free agency component with the transfer portal, to a degree, or keep that somewhat better. But the average lifespan of an NFL player is 2.5, 3 years, where so there's a lot of turnover on those teams. So now there's a little bit more fan loyalty to a group that's a 5-year lifespan, where so you watch these guys grow up through the program, and if they do it right, obviously if the kids are not leaving. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see. Again, we could be wrong, but I think so far in this, if you go back and check some of our earlier tapes and first couple of episodes, we talked about it.
Right. People didn't like it.
I think we're kind of right over the top of it, and it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how it works.
I see there being a super league, right? Maybe even not a conference, just a super league of college football. And then those left out, having their own thing. So
that'll be more NCAA football.
Yeah,
it'll be the NCAA football.
You'll have your Super League championship, right? Playoff more. That way you cut down on the amount of teams that can, or you can expand the amount of teams that participate. And then the other teams, the Big 12 teams, other conferences, they do their own thing. And so
yeah. And one of the models that I had heard was, and this is interesting, and I don't know where they're at with it, but I guess the research they had done is that the top 70 teams, right? So if they had a league with those guys playing each other, there would be no more, so to speak, blood donors, like where Alabama week 3 is playing Troy, right? That would be gone. And so every game would count. Every game would be against considered a level field, playing field opponent.
Yeah.
And so the value of those games is a lot more. And so I had read where they were already starting to figure out, like, okay, how much money has been committed to these contracts with these teams. And it'd be like a 2-year rollover period where they basically would just be paying those schools that don't get those games so they can get themselves out of those contracts, and then have their so to speak, the better matchups on TV.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think money drives a lot of this, right? Where it's like, well, yeah, Alabama plays Troy, or Mizzou plays Murray State, or whoever plays, La Tech plays Illinois.
Yeah.
Those are kind of like dead games, right? Because people, the fans watch it of, one
That's
side of it, but yeah, it's not like one everybody's tuning in for. So I think they've obviously done their research, and that was kind of the impetus to start proposing eliminating those games, and which really sucks, because then that money funds a lot of those, let's call them, less funded programs, lower financial level teams. And so now that money, if they did do this, would pretty much relegate those teams to a lower level, right? There's no way for them to break out of it.
This is where you'd have tiers of college football. You'd have your Super League, then you'd have the leftovers, which would be more traditional NCAA football, and the lowest of the lower teams. I mean, they're really going to be up against it as far as putting
I
fielding and funding football.
I think it's going to hurt the FCS level teams. The D2s will be fine because that's kind of their model anyway, right? They know how to run right today. D3 should be fine because that's kind of what they do. NAI should be fine, but the squeeze will be on that mid-major to the FCS level because it's just different. Like their models, maybe FCS to a certain degree could be okay, but the mid-major NCAA, FBS teams, I don't know. Maybe they just combine with the FCS and now it's a better brand of football, right? And more more traditional, where they're recruiting more high school kids, not as much transfer portal movement.
But which is what we're seeing, which we're going to see better football out of those guys because of it.
Yeah,
for
sure.
I mean, Stephen Mites from Eureka was at the middle school combine helping out, coaching and helping do that, which is really cool to see your guys that train at elite are boom right there.
It is
step in the mix. But Stephen is legit 6'5", 6'6", 290-pound kid. Looks like he's like 310, right?
Oh, yeah.
But because he's just well put together. I mean, in years past, he would have went to a Mizzou.
Yep.
He would have went to K-State, Iowa State, Illinois, Northwestern. But guys of his caliber are now going to be playing at Missouri State, at least for a year or two. And then the whole transfer portal thing comes in. If they do well, if they continue on a certain trajectory like he's on, then they have that opportunity to jump up. So it's really changed the dynamic. And look at Lindenwood, look at Missouri State, SEMO, Truman State. I'm telling you what, those schools I just mentioned right there, their brand of football is going to be really exciting and fun to watch.
So I had a conversation with two kids, and I think this is kind of really an interesting conversation about with college kids. Mm-hmm. So a couple of guys were in my office the other day. They play FCS level Division I guys, and they were talking about guys that have been transferring out of their school, or the number of guys on their team that are basically caught in this fairy tale that they're going to go, right?
Yeah.
Like everybody's not satisfied with where they're at, right? So it's really kind of a precarious situation. So my advice to them was, hey, listen, you have to work as hard as you've ever worked to get on the field. You are where so many kids want to be. So do not take that for granted. You can't take playing Division I football at any level for granted. And then you're thinking like, well, yeah, I want to do that, right? Like I should be at that school. Or you see one of your teammates go get a payday. Lindenwood had a kid that was a receiver who got a big payday to go to Cincinnati, right? Multiple six figures is what we've heard. And so obviously that starts the pipeline of pipe dream about guys going,
I'm better than he
I'm going to do that. I should be able to do that. And so, my advice to those guys was, hey, listen, you keep your head down, you become a starter, you do what you're supposed to do, then that may happen, but it's going to happen organically. Like very few times. Like, listen, I want to have a business that does $10 million in revenue. Okay. What are the steps I have to do every day? I can't just sit there and say, I want to do $10 million in revenue.
That's called daydreaming.
That's called daydreaming, and that is not productive. So what you need to do is get up and make a company that does 100,000, and then it does a 200,000, then it gets to $1 million. That's through the process of just working at it and getting better and refining, just like you'd refine your skills of practice.
You got to build
your skills. You got to build. So the interesting thing is I said, hey, this is the situation we're in. And I don't know if I talked about this on a show, but a couple weeks ago, maybe 3-4 weeks ago, when the transfer portal was still kind of hot and open, I had a college coach I was talking to, and we were talking about a kid that we had trained who was in the entering the portal. And I said, oh yeah. And I said, oh yeah, he played with so-and-so that's at this college now, right? An FCS level school. And he goes, oh yeah, I know that. And I said, he had a really good year this year. He goes, yeah, okay. Yeah. Oh, I know his name. I said his name, and he goes, oh, I know him. I said, oh, how do you know him? Did you recruit him? He said, no. He's like, he's on our board. He goes, on your board. I said, he's not in the transfer portal. He goes, I know. He's like, but we scout all the colleges.
Yep.
He's on our board. Like, and so it's not on his board like they're going after him to recruit him. But if he shows up in the portal, they have him ranked as one of the top guys at his position coming FCS, that they will start to go after him. So when guys are going into the portal, they've already been pre-scouted. That's what these guys are like. That's what my point to them was. Like, if that's your aspirational goal, then you better be the best player you can be at your school. And that means getting on the field, starting, and then producing.
Right.
If you do those things, the situation is going to take care of itself. Right. Yeah. And so, but it isn't going to take care of itself by worrying about what someone else got that you don't have. Right. That's a dangerous situation to be in. And I would give that to high school kids. I mean, we've talked about this. It's so hard to sit there and watch kids get offers that you think and you know you're better than. And oftentimes you maybe are. And it's very frustrating. And it's very hard to watch. But the truth of the matter is you can only go to one school. The truth of the matter is you need to keep working to get yourself in a position that when you finally get to school, that you get on field. Just because that guy got the offer you wanted doesn't mean he's going to start there.
Well, it doesn't even mean that he's going to be able to commit there.
Correct.
So that's another whole thing. The biggest piece of advice I give to kids outside of, you got to be patient, right? I mean, you really have to have, just really a master's in being patient, right? But the other thing is compete against yourself. Okay. Mm-hmm. Don't compete against others when it comes to offers, recruiting, none of that stuff. Yep. Because I got to tell you what, and you well know it. I mean, a lot of that stuff out there is not as real as you may think. And kids love to love the clout. They love to get on the internet and put that they're going to visit this school, or they're going to go to this camp, or they're hearing from this school, and some of that's good, right? I mean, it's always good to self-promote, but then you have some kids who misunderstand coaches and say that they have offers they don't have, or they'll get a camp invite and they'll think it's an offer.
Or they'll post it, it's an offer, and you're like, wow, yes. Okay, yeah, sure,
right, and so which really puts somebody like me in a bad position, right? Because I'm like, really? I'm like, you got to know. Well, that's great. Well, make sure you tag your college coach.
If you don't see him code, tag it. That's usually an issue.
That's a red flag to me. It's like, well, coach, tag who offered you or how you got your. Anyway, the thing is don't worry about what the other guy's doing, right?
Hey,
keep focused on yourself and just keep building yourself as a player, and physically, it'll work out, right?
Yeah, I saw this morning. I thought this was a post someone made. The number one killer of athletic potential is comparison.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
Too many athletes waste energy worrying about who's ahead of them instead of focusing on their own growth. The best do not rush their journey. They trust the process. They put in the work. They stay patient. Stop comparing. Start improving. Right?
Yep. Exactly what I just said. Yep.
That's the things that you got to really be focused on, right? Common thoughts that keep athletes stuck. Oh, they're already getting offers and I'm not. Why am I not as good as them yet? I'm behind. Maybe I'll never make it. Those are the things that's the stuff that is negatives that are seeping in to your mindset. That's really, really, really bad. Really bad. So, but yeah, I think, the tough thing is that you got to understand you only get to go, you got to run your race. You can't worry about anybody else's race. You can't worry about things you can't control. The things you can control is what you're putting in your body, how much sleep you're getting, what kind of workout you're doing, who you surround yourself with, what you're doing on your off time, all those things, right?
Take advantage of your opportunities.
But JP last night, cold as can be outside.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Wednesday night. Our middle school group, youth and middle school group was really good. It was great to see. Then comes in at 8 o'clock. So these guys are there from like 8 to about 9:30, 10 o'clock. Some really good linemen, some really good young linemen, and some older guys, O-line and D-line. Some really good defensive backs, and then receivers as well. And then a bunch of good quarterbacks. I mean, there was probably a couple college quarterbacks, guys that are, class of the top 2 or 3, 26 guys were in there. some 2025 guys are going to college, a good group of guys, and then a younger crop of guys like those 8th grade, 9th grade guys in there,
The real studs.
learning from the big guys and competing with them, right?
Oh yeah.
And,
Speaking of which, not to interrupt you real quick, but no, go ahead. I'll remember to say it. Go ahead.
Okay. So, but these guys are in there ripping the ball, right? And they're competing with each other. They're having fun. They're learning from each other. But they could have been doing other things, right? That's what we're talking about. You don't compare. You get in there. You work your butt off. You do the best you can do, and you let the chips fall where they may. But you cannot sit there and compare what other people got going on, because everybody's running their own race. But it is great to be around and have other guys that are running the race with you.
Right? Absolutely. And to, like you said, it was brutally cold last night, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I had hoped to make it out there. I was down on Main Street, being freezing, and I had to attend. So, but yeah, those guys coming in there like that, it's amazing. And you talked about the older guys coming in there, right? The 2025 guys.
Yeah.
And something that stood out to me this past weekend at your place was a guy who's D1, going to a D1 school, offensive lineman, was in training on Sunday, right?
Mm-hmm.
New guy comes in. The new guy is one of the top offensive linemen in the region. Probably is going to be one in the country, right?
Yep.
Your veteran offensive lineman who's already signed with college, he starts coaching up the new guy.
Yeah.
Right? That is such an amazing thing to have happen and benefit to these young guys to be able to train with the older guys. And that's just something that he learned from being at elite.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, I would say that's it. I mean, it is funny too to watch like those relationships form, and the younger guys, they don't even understand the benefit of being around the older guys, because at some point it becomes big brother, little brother type of scenario, which is great because you're learning and you're around each other. But then there's ribbing, it's stuff guys do in that training environment and just being around each other. Mm-hmm. But to me, that education and teaching, right? And so we had, a younger guy come in last night who's got some high level prospects at quarterback, just very young in the position.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to him, I said, hey, and I told him, he and his uncle, like, listen, why you're in here is because you want to learn the position, but you can also be around other guys that are playing it, going through the same thing. And you're around no one at school that's going to do the same thing these guys are going to do for you. No one's going to push you like they're going to push you. Right. And he looked at me, he's like, yeah, I don't have any other guys. I'm the only quarterback, right? I'm the only guy. And so and then the other side of it is like the same thing with the lineman. Like, I'm the only left tackle. You know what I mean? Like, getting around another guy that can bring you in and put his arm around you and say, hey, this is the way you do it. Oh yeah. Hey, I've been beaten this drill 20 times. This is how I stopped getting beat. Right. And now you maybe get beat 10 times before you recover.
Well, what was great about it is I remember the veteran offensive lineman helping this young guy. I remember when he was the new guy.
Yep. Oh,
right?
yeah.
And he came in and he didn't really know what was going on, because I got to tell you what, if you've not been into elite, you don't know what you're missing, right? And so many of these guys and some talented guys come in and I see them and I said, have you ever done anything like this before? They're like, no, never been taught this. Never been taught this. And so the veteran guy, when he first came in, he didn't really know anything. He thought he might be a baseball player, right?
Correct.
And so he came in and was doing it, and the veterans then helped him out. So that's just him, paying it forward, right? What it happened with him when he came into elite, and so this new young guy, and so it was amazing to see. So I went up to him and said, hey, good on you for doing that. But it's just such a cool thing to see happen, and that I thought I had to bring it up.
That's awesome. I mean, the environment, I would love to tell you that like I created it all, right? But that's not the truth.
I know
right?
you would.
Like the reality of it is it has grown into something that it is a family-like environment. But I will tell you, you don't hear us pushing that narrative, because that's not like,
right.
Like, it's not there's so much of that goes on in sports, and that when it's just
Right.
so contrived, and
Yep.
and you get people kind of buy into a cult mentality. That's not it.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
everybody's there of their own volition. No one's begging them to come in and train.
No one's trying to make
No
you
one's
feel
telling
bad
them, yeah, no
because
one's telling them
you're
that they
not
shouldn't
coming
go
to
somewhere
them, and
else.
you live here, and should be your loyalty.
Yeah, there's so much of
You
that
know.
junk going on with kids, and you see a lot of it with 7-on-7, and it's like very territorial. And then the funny thing is I would, truthfully, I would take a kid training, um, 10 hours of training versus 10 hours of 7-on-7 if it's my own son, right? Like I would take that. Now, will I let him go throw balls and get some reps? Hell yeah. I mean, that's a great idea.
Yep.
But he has to have that 10 hours of training
Right.
that so many guys buy into. Like, well, I just got to do that, right? No. You can do both. And if you can't do both, you should choose the training one over the other. And that's not a slight on 7-on-7 because we do it. But you're fooling yourself if you don't come in and train and develop, right? And
Right.
and like if you, and again, you can go. There's lots of places you can go train. I will just tell you, we've been doing it a long time. We've seen a lot, and so as you start to go through and you realize the same thing about those younger players getting tutored by the older players, we've seen so much. And I mean, a couple times a week there'll be things that we've talked about with our younger coaches, and they probably don't think it makes sense when I'm like, hey, no, we got to do it this way, or this is this, or this is that. And I'm sure there's times where they're like, oh man, Matt's crazy, or Jamie's crazy, or Marcus is crazy. But the reality of it is we've been through this so many times that we can navigate it and get through it. And then, a couple days later, someone will come back and be like, damn, did you see this? And say, yeah, I know. That's exactly what I told you was going to happen, because it's a pattern, right? I liken it to the reason why Tom Brady was so successful at the end of his career is he was playing a game against a bunch of guys that were new to the game or relatively new to the NFL game.
Yeah.
When you look at what we do at Elite, there are people that have popped up that do things that are, I would like to think of kind of copied us. Some even use our name, which is, it's a compliment. It's a compliment, right?
Sure.
But the reality of it is like when someone's popping up new into the game, they haven't had those tough conversations. They have not had that experience that we've had. They haven't have enough time in the game of what we're doing to have that. So yeah, you can go jump in with the guy that's training 1 or 2, or you have guys that are, I watch a lot of drill stuff where you're like, okay, like, has that guy spent any time like studying the science of training and development? Because if he had, doing a primary method of training is doing if your primary method is doing speed ladders, things of that nature, which you can use them for warm-up drills, but if that's a primary function of how you train, then you have not looked at any of the research that will tell you that they have done numbers of university studies that will tell you that there is no recall and it does not translate. Like that literally there's been study after study, sport after sport that you would assume learning those methods would translate. And they have done university level studies that will tell you that does not happen. And it's just from a neurological perspective. But to a parent and an athlete, say, man, I'm working.
Yep. Right.
There's a way to work smart and there's a way to work, inefficiently as well. So you want to be efficient. You want to be efficient. You want to be smart with how you do it. So like a guy like what we do, like our program and our coaches, our head coaches at all of our positions, they've been there. They've done that, right? I mean, 26 years of this, I've seen a lot of it. And when we first started it, I promise you, it wasn't like these guys starting up today, training out of the back of their car. No one was doing it. No one was doing it. So we set the stage and now everybody's doing it, which is great. It's cool to see. I love to see other guys help people. But sometimes you got to understand experience really does matter, right? I want the guy, this is a good story because I'm sitting at an airport. You're not. I want the person landing the plane that's been landing planes for a long, long time. I don't want the person that's been landing a few times and having to doing a belly roll like the one up in
Toronto,
Canada last. Yeah. I mean, like
you went to experience, sir.
And let me tell you a quick story, right? But we're on the plane thing.
Yeah.
1997, we're coming back from the Holiday Bowl. Okay. And I was caught in a very similar situation, and as my teammates were. We were coming back from San Diego, and it was a real foggy night coming into Columbia. And as luck would have it, they said, hey, if you're not from, if you weren't from Missouri, you got to fly home to wherever you were from, Texas or California, wherever.
Flight.
So we had a good percentage of kids that were not on the flight. And so all the guys from Missouri were flying back home. We come out of the sky, and it is foggy, like really foggy. And it was a younger pilot. I remember his voice clear as day. He ran it into the ground. I mean, literally exactly what happened in Canada. Ran it right into the ground. It knocked the air things out of the little mouthpiece for your oxygen out of the ceiling, and it was
terrifying.
Well, there was someone that's here who's like, I was in there. It was terrifying, and I will tell you what happened was, it slammed into the runway, and then he hit the reverse thrusters, and the wing dipped, and it was within an inch or so of touching the ground, and then it took back off. We took back off. The guy's up in the air.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, he comes on and he's like, hey, we're going to try that again. The power was off. The lights are off. Guys are crying. It was the most terrifying experience. And we're going to try this again. Okay. But so when I saw that this week, I'm like, and so I remember talking years later to a pilot, and I explained what happened. He goes, hey, if that wing touches, it will flip. Right. And he's like, you guys would have flipped. And oddly enough, ours, by the grace of God, did not touch. But if you go watch that video, that wing touched, and then the other wing just flipped straight over the top.
Yep.
But yeah, thank God, by the grace of God, all those people, I think, are, for the most part, everybody's alive. I know there's some injuries, but man, what a ordeal. But yeah, if you equate it down to, do you want someone that's flying your plane that's experienced, or do you want someone that's just learning? That's great. But if it's your future, and you know what, when it is a life or death situation, as far as a player, this is not a life or death situation, but as a player, your life or death as a player, you want to be around people that know what the hell they're doing. And there's so many people that will fib to you and lie to you and tell you, yeah, I'm your guy. I know so many coaches.
Experience, man. Oh God, don't get me started on that. Yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of guys that will tell you that, hey, I carry this
look
weight.
in their Rolodex and guarantee you an offer. Is that those kind of guys?
Yeah, there's guys that could. If anybody tells you they can guarantee you an offer, they are a liar. They're a liar, because
that's true.
And as many college coaches as you and I know and have relationships with, you present people to them.
Yep.
And you explain to them who they are, and then that's it. They will not. They're not going to just. If you get into a situation where somebody is doing people favors, then those are usually non-committable offers. But then also, if that kid, once or twice of that guy getting burned, or maybe once by somebody that he shouldn't have offered, that will never happen again.
Right. Nope. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So we're about out of time here. The combines, the elite combine, March 8th. That's what's up next. Training for the combine.
We got training Tuesdays and Saturdays. Tuesdays at 7:30, Saturdays at 12:30. It's great because it gets March 8th is the combine.
8th. If you've not signed up, get on that. You want to make sure that you secure yourself a spot.
Yes.
You're going to be going up competing against top competition from all across the region, the state, the region, Kansas, Illinois,
Arkansas, Kentucky,
Iowa, you name it. You're going to be doing that. You don't want to miss out on that. Great opportunity. When I say take advantage of your opportunities, you want to do that. A lot of recruiting going on now. Still, shout out to Jack Brown picking up that Alabama offer recently.
Yeah, Auburn. He got Auburn and South Carolina.
So he's taking off. You see how that works. But we'll have to talk about that another time. And of course, Lindenwood registration's open. The 6th,
Get on that now. June 6th and 7th.
You see Saturday. you see the
Get
thing.
on it.
Elite Combine March 8th, KC Varsity Combine May 3rd, in Lindenwood June 6th, 7th. That's your path forward. You want to be successful. You want to find out where you're at as a football player. That is your path forward.
Yep.
And of course, what else? Anything else going on?
No, training Wednesdays and Sundays, and then the speed and agility. It's 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. I would just say you got to be prepared. We could see the little guys, the middle school guys, the guys that have been putting in work. Very obvious to see. Guys that just showed up to kind of audit the course. Very obvious to see. So you got to make sure that you're one of those people that's understanding. Like, hey, this is my goal, you got to work for it, right? But open your eyes to the process. Yep.
More now than ever. So we're appreciate everybody tuning in. Hopefully you're warm. Stay warm. There's our social media on the screen. You want to check it out. JP Rock MO on X, JP Rock Scout U on Instagram. And Matt, people can reach you at
Elite Football on X, Elite Football Academy on Instagram, and then elitefootball.net for our website. If you've never been in, come in, do a free trial class, test it out.
elitefootball.com, elitefootballcombine.com.
Yes.
Go check it out. Sign up for the combine, and hope to see you all there. We'll talk with you next week. Everybody stay warm and stay safe. We'll see you.